Where can you register to win one of 10 1986 Cutlass Sierras, or trips for 2 to beautiful Switzerland, and a host of other fabulous prizes? At Revco during their 30th anniversary sweepstakes. And get anniversary savings on new Colgate Tartar Control toothpaste, 4.6 ounce, 99 cents. Or save on Oral-B toothbrushes, just 19 cents each with rebate and coupon. And save 60% off boxed Christmas cards. So come into Revco and register to win for their 30th anniversary sweepstakes.
Tonight on the Scene at 10, we'll continue our series International Harvest, looking at how a nuclear accident in Russia has forced changes for West German farmers.
Tonight on 1986.
Weapons con, you have permission to fire.
Away. To prevent a Soviet first strike, America has its fleet of Trident subs and missiles at the ready.
I feel very confident that we are doing what we're designed for, of being a deterrent. And if we had a nuclear exchange, then our mission has failed.
We have a warrant for your arrest, Daniel. The Sheriff's Department, child support.
In Texas, more and more delinquent dads are being rounded up and locked up for not taking care of their kids.
I can't pay what I don't have.
My father has hurt us a lot.
I regard the failure to pay child support just as another form of child abuse.
After dynamite and the wrecker's ball, this is all that's left of a New York apartment building, and Gene Herman won't leave no matter what.
And all of a sudden, someone comes along, buys and says, you gotta get out. We gotta make money. And my whole life is disrupted because he wants to make money. And a lot of money.
Good evening. This is the October 7th edition of 1986. I'm Roger Mudd.
And I'm Connie Chung. When President Reagan and Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev get together in Iceland this weekend, arms control will no doubt top the agenda. And much of the conversation will likely revolve around weapons in deep space.
The fact is, though, one of the most effective weapons to deter nuclear war is not in deep space, but in deep water. American and Soviet submarines regularly patrol the ocean depths. You normally hear about them only when they're in trouble, such as the explosion and fire that sank a Soviet nuclear sub northeast of Bermuda yesterday morning. When they are not in trouble, they are ghosts, armed ghosts, invisible, quiet, all but untraceable, and carrying nuclear missiles which give the U.S. Navy's newest submarine its name, Trident.
Fire in the missile compartment, fire in the missile compartment, fire in the missile.
There is no more dreaded alarm at sea than fire. And when the fire is on a nuclear-powered submarine, the dread is even worse. This is a fire drill aboard a U.S. nuclear sub on patrol in the Pacific 3 weeks ago. This drill is as intense as any in the Navy because American submariners know that what happened to the Soviet sub last Friday could also happen to them. But the fire drill is only one of the drills that goes on around the clock on an American missile sub.
Man battle stations missile. Man battle stations missile for WSRT. Spin out all missiles. Man battle stations missile, maneuver 9.
The crew, of course, doesn't always know this is a drill. And until it does, a call to battle stations could be the call that helps blow up the world.
Set condition 1SQ for WSRT. This is the captain. This is an exercise.
Fire order will be normal fire order.
What this submarine carries are 24 missiles, each with 8 to 10 nuclear warheads, and each warhead 10 times Hiroshima. This missile, which was test-fired last Tuesday off Cape Canaveral, has a range of 4,000 miles, which means it could be launched just east of Newfoundland and 30 minutes later hit Moscow.
It's a time battle station command.
In command of one of the Navy's newest and most powerful weapons, the Trident submarine, is Captain Stephen M. Bisher, 45 years old, Annapolis class of 63, married and the father of 2. This is the Henry M. Jackson, launched in 1983. It used to be called the Rhode Island, but was renamed to honor the late senator from Washington State. Like all submarines, seeing it is not believing it. More than half this submarine is underwater, and it is twice as long as a football field. There are now 8 Tridents in the fleet. If the 20 planned for are all built, the total cost will be $100 billion, which would make the Trident the country's most expensive weapon system.
Last man down, catch secured.
To get a TV camera on board a Trident on patrol meant agreeing to 3 Navy rules. 1, no pictures of the nuclear reactor compartment or engine room. 2, only declassified pictures of the sonar screens. And 3, no reporting of depths greater than 400 feet or speeds greater than 20 knots.
Request permission to submerge the ship to periscope depth, sir.
Very well. Submerge the ship to periscope depth.
Dive. Dive.
The Trident submarine is the least vulnerable of America's nuclear deterrents. Its purpose is to convince the Soviet Union that if it shoots first, hidden Trident missiles will then destroy Russia's cities.
FTX on the rise, 60 feet.
The Navy never knows precisely where its Tridents are at sea. Each has an area to patrol roughly the size of Ohio or Indiana, but within those limits, its position is up to the captain.
I'm the only one that knows where we're going, and I don't make that decision for the whole patrol today. I make that on a day-by-day basis.
And you make it on a day-by-day basis, what, according to how you feel, or whether you want to...
Well, on occasion, that comes into it.
The Navy claims that in 2,400 submarine patrols since 1960, the Soviet Union has never succeeded in completely tracking a U.S. sub.
300 feet.
The key to avoiding Soviet trackers is silence. The Trident is designed to be silent.
20 down. 350.
All right, I'll dive.
Even during a 20-degree dive at 10 feet per second, there is no popping or creaking because the decks float, hung from within the hull on huge turnbuckles with rubber bushings. Anything that can transmit sound is muffled. Pipes, fans, the laundry equipment, even the kitchen mixers are on rubber. Submarines are not yet beyond the reach of rock music, but rock is an airborne sound and does not pass through the hull. While the silence is not quite monastic, submariners are trained to keep their voices clear, steady, and flat.
Left full rudder, set course 340, how high?
So the enemy is not only the Russian bear, it's also careless noise. And for the loudest noise of the week, there's the Comrade Award. A recent winner was missile technician 3rd class Mark Wiedemann of Livonia, New York. What was the noise?
It was a stack of oven racks, type shit, beside the oven. I had them lean up against the wall in the galley, and the boat was rolling a little bit, and they all started to slide, and I went to stop them.
So you were guilty of feeding the bear?
Yes.
And so right then and there we lost the war because of your oven racks, huh?
If I'm guilty of that, yeah.
Sonar transients bearing 224 are biologics.
Much of the Jackson's ability to hide depends on its sonar. Not the active sonar that sends out the familiar ping-ping signal, but the passive sonar that listens with nearly 1,000 hydrophones to everything from feeding shrimp to Soviet subs. The blue-lighted sonar room is run by Chief Petty Officer Robin Shellman of Rochester, New York. What would a contact, say a Russian submarine contact, look like on one of those screens?
Okay, initially the contact would be presented as an increase in noise level above the normal background noise in the ocean.
And are these the guys who can tell me what class of Soviet submarine it is?
Yes.
Are they that good at it?
We have that capability. We're continuously trained to recognize the characteristics of a Soviet submarine or any type of either surface craft or submerged contact.
You make it up 300 feet, 20 up.
A Trident patrol lasts 70 days. 70 days of total and submerged separation. Yet working on such a big submarine seems more akin to working in a windowless, brightly lit, freshly painted, well-ventilated, high-tech boiler room.
Oh, great. I'd like some lasagna and pizza, please.
The food is a cut above the usual military mess. Because there are 4 watches a day and a meal is served before each watch, eating is a major occupation on a submarine. Gaining weight is another one. So tucked in behind missile tubes 23 and 24 is an exercise room to work off the extra lasagna. There is enough room on a Trident for a few diversions, but not many. A serious dart game can be found just forward of the nuclear compartment. There's a library of perhaps 600 video cassette movies. And there is always the rack, the bunks sandwiched around the missile tubes.
Now this is bunk room 16. As you can see, it sleeps 9 people, 3 people high.
If the Jackson has a morale officer, it is Senior Chief Petty Officer Ronnie Keel of Daytona. Almost 20 years in the Navy, and now Chief of the boat. Chief Keel keeps a close watch on his crew, not so much for the claustrophobics, they were screened out in sub-school, but for signs of stress.
A lot of guys are extroverts and some guys are introverts, and that's all right. It's nothing wrong with a guy being quiet, but when he's quiet when he's not normally quiet, and he's quiet for a long period of time, or he gets by himself, or he gets extremely irritated toward his shipmates for no apparent reason. Those are signs that tell us that there's something wrong, that either we need to show him some concern so that he'll feel better, or we talk to him and see if we can ascertain what the problem is.
Attention on deck! The Trident crew numbers 142 enlisted men and 15 officers. This is really white-collar Navy, despite their blue zip-up coveralls called poopy suits. The crew must be bright and alert. Most are nuclear, computer, sonar, or mathematical whizzes. All are high school graduates, and some have had a year or two of college. But none of that makes separation any easier. There is no mail, no telephone, only 8 50-word familygrams from home. Even though heavily censored, they are treasured.
You'd be surprised. Guys live and breathe about those things.
I intend to conduct an approach.
So for 70 days, the Trident moves quietly underwater, sending no signals, transmitting nothing, but always listening to an array of communication circuits, monitoring messages in code. The one message the submarine must always be ready for is the one the Navy calls the emergency action message, the one that could mean a nuclear war. The Navy is proud, almost smug, about its Trident system. And even experts on nuclear deterrence, like Dr. Bruce Blair, a Brookings Institution consultant, acknowledge the Trident's value.
The Trident is probably worth what we're spending on it because it is by far and away the least vulnerable of all the elements in our nuclear arsenal.
What are the weaknesses of the Trident?
Well, the Achilles heel of the submarine force is communications with higher authority. All of the links from the president to the boats are vastly more vulnerable than the boats themselves.
How so?
The primary link to the submarine force consists of 2 radio towers on the shore in Maine and Washington state. That link is so fragile that it could be destroyed by small conventional munitions, such as hand grenades.
Blair claims that even though the communication systems have backups, a successful attack on the U.S. command and control centers would quite likely isolate the Tridents. What do you think the Soviet Union thinks of the Trident submarine?
The Soviets consider it to be destabilizing because it has the weakest communications.
So their fear is that a pack of Tridents set loose without direction, without communication, without control, could in fact destroy the world.
I think the Soviets view ballistic missile submarines as a collection of loose cannons out there that might not remain under tight central control during periods of crisis or war.
But the officers and men of the Henry M. Jackson do not come across as loose cannons. The training, the skill, the discipline required on submarines tend to make their lives precise, unemotional, and highly ordered. And there is no apparent evidence that they brood about their nuclear cargo. Captain, do you think much about what the world might look like after you launched one of your missiles and you came up and took a look?
Well, I don't think about it very often. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is the movie On the Beach, because that really was a depiction of that scenario. But certainly don't dwell on that out here. I feel very confident that we are doing what we're designed for, of being a deterrent. And if we had a nuclear exchange, then our mission has failed.
And when your mother back in Burlington, Iowa, says, son, where are you going when you go? What do you tell her?
She's asked that question several times.
So what do you say?
And I tell her I'm going out. And she says, what are you going to do? And I tell her nothing. I've been telling her that since I was a teenager.
Hamburger places may be good at making hamburgers, but when they try to make chicken, it doesn't always fly. That's why I count on the chicken experts, Kentucky Fried Chicken. The Colonel's secret recipe makes their chicken tender, juicy, and downright delicious.
Things are lickin' good. At Kentucky Fried Chicken, all we do is chicken, so we do it right. Those burger places are only fooling themselves.
Kentucky Fried Chicken, we do chicken right.
Today's real estate investments come in all shapes and sizes, but the tax laws have changed, and shaping your real estate investments depends on having up-to-date knowledge. That's why Century 21 offices are introducing Investor Days, with investor workshops and this free booklet to give you timely information that could influence the shape of your financial future. Don't miss Century 21 Investor Days, October 6th through the 12th.
Panasonic, the future of office automation. Advanced equipment with an extraordinary concept. The easier, the better. The Panasonic modular electronic typewriter lets you customize for your specific needs. Expand its memory. Add a character display. Over 1,000 ways to make your work easier. Panasonic modular typewriters. Like our copiers, computers, and peripherals, the easier, the better. Panasonic Office Automation. Oldsmobile quality. You'll not only hear it,
Wednesday on Highway to Heaven.
I got to stop!
Has Mark developed heavenly powers?
You could have gotten yourself killed.
Then on Give Me a Break, Nell gets a pint-sized surprise.
My brother? I think I'll run out and get a box of cigars.
And on You Again, Matt's cooking up a surprise for Henry.
Is this going to be a semi-annual event like making your bed?
Come on, Wednesday.
Wednesday, conductor Craig handle his replacement?
This is my department. I'm telling you to back off.
Can Ehrlich handle Lucy?
I want you.
Wednesday.
It's a sad comment on our time that many otherwise ordinary, law-abiding Americans have knowingly become outlaws. Their crime? Refusal to pay child support. Half of divorced fathers pay less than what a court has ordered them to pay, or nothing at all. But in Texas, the Attorney General is using harsh tactics to change all that. Jim Maddox has declared war on so-called deadbeat dads, and he's forcing them to be more than fathers in name only. The divorced father.
I can't pay what I don't have.
The son.
My father has hurt us a lot.
The ex-wife.
I just fell into debt continuously. I never had enough money.
The new wife.
This woman is not living in a cardboard box. She's not doing without anything.
Jean and Ken Ryan were divorced in 1974 after 7 years of marriage and 3 children, Kevin, Kim, and Kelly. As part of their settlement, Jean got the children a car and a few family possessions. Ken says he was strapped with a beat-up car, her car payments, the debts of the marriage, and child support. The early years of the divorce were tough.
She moved away, for one thing. Moved away from where I was, left me with a car that I couldn't use to try to visit my kids. Obviously, my visitation trips dwindled and dwindled and dwindled.
According to Ken, Jean began to turn the children against him. He became estranged, angry, and after 3 years, he stopped paying child support.
And I know that as the years went on and as she was turning them against me, there wasn't any point in trying to have contact with them. And she has indeed poisoned their minds, and I know that for a fact.
I do remember a lot a lot of tension in the air.
I heard my mom call him a creep and call him names, and that always bugged me. He hasn't seen them since January of 1976. And I certainly had not turned them against him at that point. And to my knowledge, he's made absolutely no effort to contact them in any way.
All this usually remains a family matter, but not in Texas. One day, Ken Ryan woke up to find his story in the newspaper, a picture of his ex-wife with the Attorney General of the state, and his personal life an open book.
Ken Ryan doesn't happen to have a valid excuse.
Texas Attorney General Jim Maddox is a new-style bounty hunter, out to catch desperados, fathers who don't pay child support. He puts their names on 10 most wanted lists, published in newspapers across the state, and has them arrested and thrown in jail. Maddox never got the chance to arrest Ken Ryan because Ryan had moved to New York. But that didn't stop Maddox from going after the $34,000 Ryan owed in back child support. Mr. Ryan, you have been targeted and sought out by Attorney General Jim Maddox. What do you think of him?
He has embarrassed me in front of my parents, in front of my children in Texas, in front of my friends in Texas.
Part of the issue is very simple. Is he paying his fair share of the child support?
I don't agree with his tactics. Don't go to the newspapers, don't go to the press, don't publicly embarrass people. That tactic went out, in my view, with the demise of the dunking stool and the stocks in colonial America.
He's in a totally indefensible position because he was sending no child support.
Maddox believes he has the classic case of a deadbeat dad in Ken Ryan.
Do you have the menu planning guide? Oh, that's a wonderful book, and we have tons of those.
A year after her divorce, Jean Ryan went to work in Austin, Texas, and for 8 years was the sole support of her children. When her ex-husband stopped paying child support, she was making $11,000 a year. Today, she earns $25,000. Tell me what life was like for you when you were bringing up 3 children with no child support.
It was utter hell, if I can be, yes, really honest.
The Ryan teenagers say they all had to work to earn money for clothes and little luxuries like movies. They've worn hand-me-downs and haven't been to the dentist in 9 years. Even Kim's braces were free, a gift from an orthodontist who belongs to their church.
Bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts for which we are about to receive through thy bounty, through Christ our Lord. Amen.
The kids say they went for long periods of time when dinner wasn't what it is today.
We had a lot of beans and tortillas, and just stuff that didn't cost very much usually.
This woman has 3 children. She does need money to support them, and the reality is that you weren't paying it.
I attempted as much as I could to make support payments for as long as I could. You can't get blood out of a stone.
Had he tried to pay a little bit, it might have mitigated it somewhat. But he's made no attempt.
Ken Ryan says paying child support for 3 years and paying debts of the marriage broke him. On top of that, Ken quit his job when he decided to return to school for a master's degree in library science.
I got to a point in my career where I really needed a career change. I had to go back to school to advance my career. I petitioned the court on several occasions to lower my support payments, and the court, in its infinite wisdom, came back and left the support at the same level, which in the final order in 1977 was approximately 115% of my income. That is totally impossible, of course, to pay.
He stopped paying child support a year after he remarried. Now he supports his new wife, Evelyn, who doesn't work, partly, she says, because she does not want her salary to go to the first wife.
This woman has pretended that these children are poor. They're not poor. She has bought a $125 Christian Dior nightgown from Neiman Marcus.
Oh, the nightgown. That was, Kevin gave me the money for most of that as my Christmas present, and my parents sent the rest.
One of the children has an $800 saxophone. Another has a $500 guitar. Now, if she says she only ate beans and cheese, and if she says one of the children had 1 pair of shoes, the woman is lying.
The $800 saxophone was a $600 saxophone that we bought on time so that Kelly could play an instrument in band. The guitar, that must have been the one Kevin bought.
That was Kevin's.
Kevin bought that himself with his own money.
For 5 years, Jean Ryan had no success in getting her ex-husband to pay child support until Attorney General Jim Maddox and his posse came along.
I regard the failure to pay child support just as another form of child abuse.
When Maddox took office in 1983, Texas had the worst record in the country for collecting child support. He launched an aggressive campaign, and today, Texas is about average. His men spent a year tracking down Ken Ryan to a townhouse in Long Island. With the help of the New York court, Ryan, who makes $40,000 a year, is now paying almost $9,000 to Jean Ryan. Maddox has successfully squeezed $125 million in child support from other fathers. Maddox is an experienced politician, a former 3-term congressman who understands the vote-getting benefit of his efforts. But he says his desire to help needy mothers is partly personal.
My mother and dad were separated when I was about 12 years old. And my dad always paid his child support, but it was still a struggle for our family.
Hi, I'm Patrick Duffy, and this is April.
Hi.
His methods are controversial and unorthodox. Part publicity.
If you owe child support to your kids, please pay. Show your kids you still love them. A caring reminder from Dallas and your Texas Attorney General's office.
And part scare tactics.
We have a warrant for your arrest, Daniel. The Sheriff's Department, child support.
We pick out 10, 15, 20 people, and we try to make examples out of them because we are attempting to not necessarily humiliate them. We want to make sure that all the other thousands of people that do not pay their child support respond because of the fear that they themselves will be humiliated.
Certainly you're entitled to representation, allow you to place a telephone call to your attorney or whatever.
Maddox stages periodic roundups of delinquent fathers with the help of local sheriff's departments. They arrest child support dodgers at home or at work and haul them off to jail. Al and Alex Aranda, sheriff's deputies in San Antonio, are identical twins, known as the A-Team. They nab more than 30 delinquent fathers a month. Both the Arandas have children from previous marriages. Both have paid child support.
We're in the same boat as they are, so they can't really tell me, look, I can't pay this, or I'm having problems. Because there's times that I feel like, hey, I need the child support that I'm dishing out. If I have to do it, so can you.
Most fathers arrested by the Arandas spend at least one night in jail and must face a judge. Often, the penalty is stiff.
$100 fine, 6 months in jail until you purge yourself of $860.
Isn't it true that what ends up happening is that the really low-income fathers are the ones who end up behind bars, and they didn't have a job in the first place, can't get a job, they're unemployed, and can't end up paying their child support because they're behind bars for a few days?
When they get behind bars, it's amazing how fast they can find that money. We call it mattress money. They get up off the mattress and get the money out and bring it down there.
Do you quarrel with the intent of what Jim Maddox is trying to do?
They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I don't think he has a good intention. I think it's politicizing.
All that we have seen in Texas is media mania.
Maddox is running for re-election this year. His opponent, Judge Roy Barrera, thinks Maddox is using the child support issue to gain votes.
There's no question in my mind that he has attempted to make as much political mileage as he can out of creating the impression that he is a protector of children and moms who are seeking child support, when in truth and fact, all he is doing is politicking and grandstanding upon the misery of mothers and children in Texas.
The critics say that you're just a Texas Ranger, you're a political opportunist, and that you're using the child support issue just for your own political benefit.
Well, it's easy for people to make those kind of allegations. There are two sides to this argument. There are two people. There's a wife or an ex-wife, and there's a husband. They both may vote. The sword cuts both ways. If you're popular with one group, you may be very unpopular with another group.
I'm now getting child support. So if Jim Maddox wanted to do it for political reasons, that's fine with me.
I'm getting child support.
The Ryan saga isn't over. Ken Ryan is appealing his case. He wants his support payments lowered.
1986 will be back in a moment. When we return, Peter Kent will visit a woman who is absolutely, positively immovable. And Lucky Severson will ship out with a skipper who is definitely not a Sunday sailor.
Hey, Wade! It's American stuff. It belongs here in America. We're going down to make sure that happens.
The fiber in Kellogg's Mini Wheats helps keep me flying right, but it's the delicious frosting that fuels my youthful appetite.
Small problem. The shredded wheat nutrition gives me that drive, but the kid in me loves to tackle the tasty side.
Kellogg's Mini Wheats, shredded wheat nutrition for the adult in you, delicious taste for that part of you that'll never grow up.
The fiber in Mini Wheats gives me a great start. When it comes to the great taste, I'm just a kid at heart.
I'll have what she's having.
With the new Fisher-Price Sesame Street cookie counter, Cookie Monster helps Amy count
1, 2, 3, 4.
and subtract, and lets her know when she's right. 4 and 4.
The Fisher-Price cookie counter. The Fisher-Price AM/FM radio with microphone. Your child can be the announcer.
We've got some hot tunes.
Sing along, too. The Fisher-Price AM/FM radio with microphone. Your child can be the star.
I'm Brian Gumble. Tomorrow morning on Today, we'll see how effective private drug clinics are in helping addicts.
I'm Tom Brokaw. Game 1 of the baseball playoffs. More on our series on staying young.
That's tomorrow morning on Today.
I'm Tom Brokaw. America's leaky southern border, how U.S. Customs is attempting to stop thousands of drug-carrying planes. Tomorrow on NBC Nightly News.
Dairy Queen, an American original with the coolest treats and the hottest sound around. The sizzling of a home-style double burger with cheese. Start with a thick, juicy home-style patty that looks, cooks, and tastes like homemade. Add melting cheese and another home-style patty. It's the hefty home-style double burger with cheese. Only at Dairy Queen, an American original.
We treat you right.
From Channel 4, this is a news update. Here is Demetria Kaladimos.
Tonight on the scene at 10, taxes, growth, and campaign spending are debated in East Tennessee. A look at a controversial law and what it's accomplished in 1 year. Investigators wonder if a cyanide poisoning was accidental or intentional, and how West German farmers are coping with Chernobyl's radioactive fallout. Now this message.
Some people like the taste of Coke, and some people like the taste of Pepsi, but some people go out of their way for the taste of RC.
57 degrees in Nashville. More news later on the scene at 10.
This has been a news update brought to you by Royal Crown Cola.
We usually don't think of big city people as having roots. They move around all the time, we think. After all, one apartment is pretty much like another. Well, not always. Peter Kent met a woman in New York City recently who's as intent on saving her home as any third-generation farmer. Big city or no, Jean Herman is rooted.
Some people think Jean Herman is simply unrealistic. Others see her as an eccentric, money-hungry opportunist. But still others consider her to be a direct descendant of pioneer frontierswomen who were willing to go to almost any lengths to preserve hearth and home. This is where Jean Herman lives.
Here I am, living my own place, paying my rent, being a good citizen, interested in everything that's going on, creative person, and all of a sudden, someone comes along, buys and says, you gotta get out. We gotta make money. And my whole life is disrupted because he wants to make money. And a lot of money.
This is the somebody Miss Herman is talking about. Sherman Cohen, chairman of Cohen Brothers Realty Corporation, a big New York development company worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Mr. Cohn, working from his gleaming New York headquarters, has been trying to get rid of Jean Herman for years. But the diminutive, unmarried woman seems to be winning this classic landlord-tenant confrontation.
What does this apartment mean to you?
Home. It's my neighborhood. It's my place. I mean, it's the only home I have. And I love the neighborhood. I know everybody around. And I really adore the place. I mean, it's not gorgeous, but, you know, I like it.
Jean Herman has lived in this little apartment since 1954. The original rent was $73 a month. A little pricey then, but because of New York's rent control laws, 32 years later, Jean's rent is still less than $200 a month. A bargain anywhere. In Manhattan today, it's a steal.
Once you move out of rent control, there's nothing left, except rent stabilized. But the rent control, they're phasing it out in New York City.
This is what Jean Herman Street used to look like before her apartment building was bought by Mr. Cohn's company. He didn't want the squat brick structures. He wanted the space in this crowded city put to a much more lucrative use, a 31-story office tower. It's a prime location at Lexington and East 60th, right across from Bloomingdale's. The developers wanted to flatten everything on the site, and more than 20 residential tenants and all of the commercial tenants agreed to move out. But not Jean Herman. For more than 2 years, she's been the sole resident of her building, holding demolition crews at bay with New York's rent laws. In fact, she turned down $650,000 that the Cohen brothers offered her as cash compensation to get out.
They upped it to $500,000, and then they upped it the last time was $650,000, which meant, and they would move me out.
Well, some people, hearing of your story for the first time, indeed some of your friends have said,
absolutely,
$750,000, Jean Herman, you're crazy not to take it and run.
It wasn't $750,000.
Well, $650,000.
About $750,000, okay. Yeah, I know, because they think it's a lottery.
It sounds like a lot of money, but Jean contends it wouldn't last her very long if she moved out of her present apartment and tried to stay in this neighborhood. She did look at more than 20 replacement rental apartments offered by the developers, but rents around here, without rent controls, run $2,000, $3,000, even $4,000 a month, and they're constantly rising. Jean figured that after lawyers' fees were paid, she would still go through the settlement money in rent alone in less than 10 years.
In addition to that, it's another lifestyle. My lifestyle is sort of rinky-tinky. You know, I don't have to get elegant clothes. I don't have to have wall-to-wall carpets. I don't have to keep up with the Joneses. And I say, oh, my goodness, look at that woman coming in the elevator. She looks really drastic. Or things like that. It's a completely different raise in my standard of living, which I don't want. I really don't want it. I'm not that kind of a person.
So, while the digging and drilling and dynamiting continues around what's left of her apartment building, Jean Herman refuses to leave.
Mr. Cohen obviously feels that you're standing in the way of progress.
The word is not progress, it's profit. And this man is not building a hospital or a public park. He's only doing this for an enormous amount of profit.
And under the city's rent laws, Jean Herman can stay and force the developers to build their new building around their old building. Or what's left of it, the back half of the apartment block, right up to Jean's kitchen wall, was chopped off in February when the Cohens grew impatient.
Now this were 3 good apartments. This is the top floor and then 2 below that. And they cut them all off. That was a demolition. And behind this is a masonite wall. 3 good apartments that people could have lived in.
The developers are clearly exasperated. The Cohen brothers contend that they tried to reach a fair relocation agreement with Jean Herman. They would not, however, agree to our repeated requests for an interview to get their side of the story. Mr. Cohen says through printed statements issued to the media that his company has been more than reasonable with Jean Herman, that they've offered adequate replacement housing and financial compensation. Jean disagrees. She contends she's been pressured psychologically and physically.
Well, when they started demolition, all this ceiling began to crack. And now I have all this stuff floating down, covering everything, little bits of plaster.
Jean complains she's been left without water, electricity, garbage pickup, and phone service more times than she can remember. Jean used to work as a freelance writer from her apartment. Now she's completely preoccupied with the battle to keep it, and she's used up practically all of her savings. Instead of press releases and articles, she spends hours at the typewriter firing off letters to building inspectors, her lawyers, even judges. Jean is reluctant to leave the small one-bedroom apartment for more than a few hours at a time. She fears the developers would use an overnight absence, for example, as an excuse to lock the building up as abandoned. But she says she has to get out when the blasting begins. George Salerno's law firm represented Jean Herman for almost 3 years. But Mr. Salerno's firm thought Jean should have let them negotiate a cash settlement for her. Jean said she wasn't interested in cash, so they dropped the case. And Jean hired a new lawyer, Sheila Klempner.
It's not what Jean might have been offered at one point, but really what's being taken away from her. One has the right to the peaceful, quiet enjoyment of their apartment, and she certainly has not had that. She has been terribly harassed. They have taken away her emotional security. They have taken away her physical security, which is really one of the priorities. They've taken away her financial security.
The Cohen brothers contend that Jean is harassing them, that her refusal to settle has cost them at least $1 million so far. They've launched a $5 million lawsuit against Jean. Jean is countersuing. Quite apart from her claim for continued residency, Jean is asking for $10 million damages in her harassment suit against Sherman Cohen and his company.
He's got enough, for God's sakes. He's in Forbes. He's worth, last I heard, was about $400 million. I mean, that blows your mind.
But what would an ideal settlement for you be?
I don't talk settlement. There's no settlement.
Resolution, then. How do you want this all to end?
I stay here. I stay here, and I'm compensated for 5.5 years of harassment. And my lawyer's fees are paid. That's it.
Even Jean's former lawyer admits he's changed his mind and now understands and supports her determination to stay where she is.
Does it do her any good to try and get a sum of money now, and then 5 years from now she's going to be out on the street? Did you ever walk along Fifth Avenue and see those people that sleep in the park? Jean Herman is not going to end up that way. Not because she's going to do it to satisfy Sherman Cohen. Jean Herman will stay where she wants to stay because as a citizen and as a taxpayer, she has a right to live where she's living.
What's going to happen next? I don't know. I love my place. I love my neighborhood. I don't see what the alternative is. I can't see the advantages of any other place.
Decisions. Should you stop for a McDLT or should you stop for a Whopper? The McDLT is fried, so it tastes, well, fried. The Whopper is flame broiled to taste more like a backyard barbecue. The McDLT is the one they'd rather serve their way. The Whopper is fixed your way to your taste, all of which should make your basic decision very simple.
This is a Burger King town. We know how burgers should be.
The new tax plan. Where do you stand? Should you take long-term capital gains in 1986? Should you defer income? Continue your IRA? These are 3 of the 7 critical questions every serious investor must answer before December 31st. And the obvious answers may not be the right solutions. Talk with us. Shearson Lehman Brothers. Minds over money.
Dear Linda, hope you can make my concert tonight. Love, Michael. Today, you don't have to wonder how your hair will turn out. You use Finesse. Just the right amount of conditioning, whether you need a little or a lot.
Only one cold tablet can say it relieved my stuffy nose and face. Only Actifed. Only one cold tablet can say it relieved my sneezing in space. Only Actifed.
Only Actifed has been on every manned U.S. space flight since Apollo 7. It comes to you full strength without a prescription. Only Actifed is the cold tablet most recommended by doctors.
Only one cold tablet can say all that.
Only Actifed.
Sunday on Our House, will Gus teach the kids about law or end up in jail? Then on Easy Street, what makes Bully such a ladies' man?
Way to go, killer.
And on Valerie, raising 3 boys is enough to make a mother's hair stand on end.
I look like a sunflower.
Sunday.
Sunday, a famous psychologist, a mysterious murder, a secluded orphanage.
There's something not right about that place.
Now he must find the truth.
You are messing with people's reputations here. Powerful people.
Before the killers find him. Ted Danson stars When the Bow Breaks, Sunday.
3 years ago, the longest winning streak in the history of sports was broken. After 132 years, America lost the America's Cup to Australia. Last Sunday, the race for the Cup began again. Off Fremantle in Western Australia, a dozen 12-meter yachts from 6 countries will be sailing against each other for 4 months, vying for the right to challenge Australia in January. One of the American boats is skippered by a fellow from Zenda, Wisconsin, which is nowhere near the sea. As Lucky Severson reports, the sailing world knows enough not to count this particular skipper out, but he certainly is a long shot.
Oh, it's a gorgeous day on Monterey Bay. Okay, we're going in. Tacking! Big wave.
His name is Buddy Melgus. He's also been called the Wizard of Zenda.
Driving! Hey!
The mouth of the South, Ted Turner, in a rare moment of hyperbole, said that next to Ferdinand Magellan, Buddy Melgus is the best sailor in the history of the world. Ted is a buddy of Melgus.
Ted is a very good sailor. Better duck hunter. Good big ball, isn't it, huh?
And what Ted did in 1977, Buddy Melgus wants to do in 1987. He wants to win the America's Cup to bring it back up.
If it belongs here in America, we're going down to make sure that happens. If we can take care of the Australians, hell, they're just like we are.
As most Americans know, for the first time in 132 years, America lost the Cup in 1983. The Australians came up and took it back home. The Aussies did it with space-age technology, a super-secret winged keel, the first ever. Now all the 12-meter boats have winged keels, and they're all down in Perth, Australia, competing to race in the 1987 America's Cup. There are 12 teams in the running down under. 6 of them are from the U.S. The America 2 from the New York Yacht Club has been in Australia training for 2 years with a budget of $15 million. Dennis Conner, the helmsman who lost the Cup, has been training with another $15 million budget and 4 new boats off Hawaii, where the winds are similar to those in Australia. There's the Mystery Yacht from a $10 million syndicate in San Francisco. The USA is said to be so sophisticated, it's really a computer with sails.
Come on, get that jib in. Let's go, ladies.
Finally, from the Great Lakes, Heart of America, with its pitchfork flagpole, a low-budget operation operated by 56-year-old Buddy Melgus.
I'm doing this for Middle America. We want to show the rest of the world that we sail well here on the lakes, and I think it'd be also a great idea if we took some of the high-tone thinking out of America's Cup and get it down to the earth where it belongs. This is a sport for all people.
Outside of the America's Cup, Buddy Melgus has won just about everything there is to win in sailing. The World Star Championship twice. U.S. Sailor of the Year 3 times. In the 1972 Olympics, he won a gold medal. He's that good a sailor, even if he did get his training far from the salty seas.
Here we only have corn to sail in. This is downtown Zenda. You are now on the crosstown expressway, Lucky.
I guess we better be careful. We could be run over here.
Well, that's a possibility, but it's not rush hour, so we should be all right.
Zenda, Wisconsin. Population 57, a few miles south of Lake Geneva. Buddy calls it the garden spot of the Midwest. It is surrounded by corn. And it is the home of the Melgus Boat Works, the family business that builds racing scows.
It's not the end of the world, but you can see it from here.
Buddy Melgus doesn't enjoy just riding in a boat. He wants to race anywhere, anytime, even if the water's not salty.
There's nothing magic about salt. I guess if you get too much of it, it's bad on your veins, but other than that, I like this drink water sailing.
Nobody denies that Buddy Melgus is a world-class sailor, a champion, but he's never raced in an America's Cup before. He'd never even raced a 12-meter boat before last December. In the beginning, his syndicate, the Chicago Yacht Club, didn't even have the $1 million or so it cost to buy a boat.
We started from zero, absolute zero. No experience in 12-meter racing, no experience in fundraising, no boat, no nothing. Me, no, big time, big time.
Everybody, Chicago is.
So he became a fundraiser, but unlike the other syndicates, Buddy was asking for $5 or $10 or whatever.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, you're welcome. Appreciate it. Now, the only trouble we did have early on in our fundraising was, hey, you know, where are you guys coming from? You're sailing on Lake Michigan.
There was another problem in the beginning. Lake Michigan is a lake. And the Royal Perth Yacht Club said Heart of America didn't qualify for the Cup races because it didn't have an ocean. So the syndicate petitioned the State Supreme Court of New York to reclassify the lake, to put a little salt in it, and it did.
Now Lake Michigan is an arm of the sea, and most of our sailors are already complaining about the saltiness of the water.
There were other obstacles. While a new 12-meter boat was being designed, the Heart of America bought a used 12-meter from the Canadians and went north to Victoria, British Columbia, to train and race the Canadians, and it snowed. Finally, this May, Melgus and crew got their new 12-meter with a wing keel like the Aussies used and began training in earnest off Santa Cruz, California.
Come on, take it down. Floor guy, pull it, let's go.
And that's when it became clear that he was going to be sailing uphill all the way. His crew was inexperienced, and it showed.
All right, going down the wind. Hold on. Hold the main, hold the main. Hold the jib, hold the jib. Get it in! Don't just stand there! I'm embarrassed.
There were days that ended with a lecture from the boss, to the crew, and to himself.
I thought, just generally speaking today, we were ragged. We didn't have that quickness in our step. I think we were, you know, we were just lackadaisical. And I think that that is something that we have to leave right here from this day forward. It's hard for me. I'm fighting complacency out there all the time. And if it's starting to bleed forth into you guys, I'll apologize.
And if he was hard on the crew seemed to understand.
He's an intense person, and I want to do well for him because I know he's working his tail off for us.
There's no question that we got to get mean, man. We got to go after this thing. We got to attack it. I like Spence. Spence attacks things, and that's the way I like to see it. Get after it. Same way with Wally. Man, this is war.
Buddy Melgus may be salt of the earth, but he does not like to lose, and he will do most anything he can to avoid it. His friends and his competitors say he has an extra keen sense of the wind.
I've been accused of sailing by the seat of my stomach because I do it mostly by feel. Turn the sheet, let's go. Nice job, Wally.
But it's going to take more than feel to win and bring up the cup. Buddy's competitors are using sophisticated computers like the ones on Sail America's $2 million tender. The Heart of America also has a tender, known affectionately as the Rubber Ducky. There are other differences. The America II Syndicate has over 100 sails. Heart of America, at last count, had 37, and so on. In the highfalutin circles of world-class yachting, the Heart of America challenge is viewed with a bit of lofty skepticism. They take Buddy Melga seriously enough, but the very idea that he could go down under on a wing keel and a prayer and bring back the cup to Lake Michigan, of all places, is regarded by some as a little silly, to say the least. Halsey Herreshoff was crewman and navigator in 4 America's Cup races. He picks his old skipper, Dennis Conner, to represent the U.S. in the Cup finals. What are the odds on Buddy Melga's winning?
Buddy Melga always has to be counted as a possible winner in anything he goes into. But I think here, even with his wonderful abilities, that he has to be something of a long shot because they've had one boat, they have less practice, they have fewer people with America's Cup experience, and so he's not my favorite to win, but I'd always give Buddy a chance.
Trim! Let's go! Trim! Despite all the early problems, the young crew of Heart of America pulled together and got better. In August, using their older boat, they won 3 races and $10,000 competing against the Canadians on Lake Michigan. And Heart of America has now tapped both the imagination and pocketbook of the Midwest. They may raise as much as $7 million, which is a small budget by comparison, but who'd ever thought they'd raise that much sailing for the America's Cup in the middle of Middle America? The Aussies are laying 20-to-1 odds against you.
I like it.
You like 20-to-1?
Sure. What the hell do they know? We're going to Perth. Not to just entertain ourselves with America's Cup competition. We're going down to Perth to bring the cup up.
That's our broadcast for tonight. Thanks for watching.
See you next Tuesday evening. Good night.
You're going down a road behind the wheel of the new Dodge Dakota. The first true mid-size pickup ever made. With available 3.9-liter V6, room for 3, and an optional 8-foot bed. The new mid-size Dakota. Climb aboard. Cross into Dakota territory. Dodge Dakota, the new state of the American truck.
Read any good microwave popcorns lately? Now this one says, it's normal for 1 to 3 tablespoons of kernels to remain unpopped. And this one is only recommended for certain wattage microwaves. Now this one is Pop Secret from Betty Crocker. Pop Secret works in all microwaves, and it pops up beautifully, light and fluffy. The next time you want to curl up with a good microwave popcorn, make it Pop Secret. The secret to better microwave popcorn.
Thursday, Chrissy finds a new cause when she meets a guru.
Hold on a minute. Yeah, you've been rolling into...
Find a new roommate? Find out on Three's Company, tonight at 10:30, right here on Channel 4.
What happens when mom and dad, all the kids, have no money, no food, and no home? Meet America's Homeless Families on the next Oprah Winfrey Show.
Wednesday morning at 9 on Channel 4.
Why does Tennessee have one of the highest infant death rates in the country? Channel 4 News takes a look at what can be done to save our babies, our future, tomorrow on Channel 4 News.
Tonight on the scene at 10, it's candidate versus candidate in Johnson City tonight. It's called one of the toughest laws of its kind, but how well is it working in Tennessee? And fire officials close their investigation into a fatal weekend fire. That's coming up next.